Welcome to Dungeon Master. You have turned into this channel to hear me be Dungeon Master for a while over this moving quick dungeon, the Dungeon of Lost, great video games that were already amazing in scope and structure and took so much brain power of the regular humanoid that we have found to play these beautiful dungeons that we have mapped out of our subconscious imagination here in the Middle Ages, to be in the Middle Ages there, and to hear the bard for once with a tuned guitar. But this will take us to another realm of strategy, where we will see things that we wanted to know and hear things that we wanted to do, and that everything is sinking in now that I've just gone to expand the kingdom of Haltree and the phases of where Doris gets her oats. Now, if you look directly to the left, there's an icon that's not being used, so we're going to the right instead, of course. Off into this grassy area, I don't see why I should condone a game that starts so narrowly and devolves so much like the uncharted territory of what is to come. That we've broken this up into beautiful footage of how to maneuver a single task from an irony of having so many. You can get lost in knowing that you have to use them all eventually, and that these raptures of gaming fantasy have given us such dungeon master nobility. To no end we can see how to build the strategist from these light and shadow documents of our imagination as we are in Japan and everywhere else. We thank thee for these guides to dungeons that without we would get destroyed in battle, like some of these would say they're doing, but that you maneuver around to different abilities is only part of what I wanted to show you, because there is a world that you did not know existed. There is a world beyond imagination, beyond the curls of time, that you do what the game tells you to do, and that you tell the game what you want it to do, is the whole history of the game within the mind. That the game within the mind is coming sooner, that we will activate these kind of fantasies from our mind, from even staring at them too long. And by the way, you didn't see this, it's a novel the bard's writing. I don't know, he's got some sort of poet trash angle on Japan himself. Samurais and all they be, and peasants be the poor. But wait, we can all work on operating video games like this and make ourselves useful members of society. Because if there's one thing about gaming we've learned, it's that we're all useful members of society when we're wrapped up in a fantasy role-playing game such as this. And I'm not sure this is the rendering that we're looking for in the technological age of perhaps even the Elder Scrolls had us beat early on, and I've seen some things on the internet that have shuddered me to comparison of a greater game than suppose there may not be. That I don't remember even this game, but it looks more familiar in terms of games I've actually played, is actually Dungeon Master gets to be wieldy and say he has in fact played this one, but he can't remember that it had Minecraft abilities and parts, but that he did in fact conquer this game is known only to Nintendo Power and its organizationists, and why it was released for Super Nintendo in all pixels and better for computer. But that we see the Dungeon Master leering back on his old fantasy games, and that they're already in the medieval era, and that there's so much to tend to at a cafe, and that dealing with the primordial lifestyle. Oh, switch! So here I am going through the lilac bush. It's a big maze. I came out against a wall and now there's a tree. I'm gonna go this way in case... Oh, hello. What's your name? Okay, I gotta get my name too affixed to whatever I want it to be. That's my favorite part of RPGs. Naming my character B and then going on an adventure I've never been on that I need a strategic guide for. Oh yes, this is the treasure trove of where games were once invented. This was all things beautiful to the heart of man, that there were scary equations on all sides of how we looked at things on the left and right. If you look to the left of the screen, you get
This
this.
is your last chance to see decorated war hero Teddy Daniels' revealing documentary, the one where he reveals the
Well, that's just an interruption that we've got to afford for a moment because we're seeing these things. We could get sponsored that way, but we're sponsored anyway, and we're trying to make money for other people, so hang on. This is that Genji loafer that's been loafing up to big news that is somehow 100 pages in is only beautiful. And that's just seeing a tidbit of it that wouldn't make sense out of context, but will when the book comes out, is what's scaring me to think. How many dungeon masters will have to come in between? 20 maybe? 10? If Dungeon Master's an ever-long series and these are the types of images that prolong it, as opposed to being tricked into a Japanese history book, which is what these cartoons are actually about most of the time, whether they're from Japan or not, which is why I had to write about Japan, is because all animated things come from there. In terms of this computer was probably made perfect there and came true there with the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees, and everybody loves a fun witch and her giant bubble, and this is a good game, and I bet you could get lost for hundreds of hours in this game. If you want to know, I was on that secret venue of seeing everyone get lost into the game, and I didn't know if there was 100 hours of a game you could play, but one of them was one that I knew a gamer once who played that horse and trottle conquest game into the ground, 120 hours till everything was advanced to the 99th level. You know, it was like Skyrim, but even longer to play because you had to tend to your horses in your town, more so than you do in Skyrim capability to tame your horse, which is still there. And that these games give us direct maps into adventures we've had and will have again on Dungeon Master. It's just only true that all we love to do is stare at video game screens, whether we're playing them or not, but if we're playing them, they certainly seem to be more dire in terms of our direction, rather than in these random assortments of crazy flips through the air that makes it look like a game that I'd once played before, but now I'm getting different conquests of a dungeon master sort, that we're changing weaponry based on the architecture of these once pixelated art games, that we've put these on as fantasy pixel art games, and that they're real games, and that I've seen pieces of some of them. Make no sense that they're in the medieval ages, because where do we find the ones that are not of the medieval ages that are absolutely necessary to the gameplay? So we will watch in delirious excitement this interview, this intermix of gameplay that's now gone on to a new game. And I don't know how that happened, because we weren't even finished with partially what we had seen of perhaps another game we had played. This looks familiar, but is now medieval, and now it's looking 3D, and these are looking bigger. These monsters are 10 feet taller, and he's cutting them to shreds. I have played this game. This game is brutal. It's a wild game. You have to knock these creatures down and fight them with all your might, and that it's still an amazing game of how to sword battle, and we are fighting a boss in Dungeon Master 2. It's crazy. Let's fight this boss. Really? That he has a sword wielding at us and is 3 times taller has been taken down a bit? Okay. We backed out. We ran away from the boss fight. He was too big for us. Now we're going to be shooting for flying fish in the sky. If we can hit any from here, it would be a miracle. We'd roast them up and eat them, like the Japanese have trained us to eat fish from the sky if you laser beam them. Oh, a zombie. Yeah, you got it. Immortal, defeated. He's only called immortal because he's a zombie and back from the dead. That's kind of like rising from the grave. That kind of makes you immortal, because until you're dead as a zombie, you're immortal. And this is the freedom that we have to show each other the things we love about each other, like giant smash rays and weird lines of lingo that are somehow frosh with the idea that we can turn them into something they don't mean. Let's go on to another game. That we're having fun with this, and that we shouldn't deny that at one point we're going to have to recently see what's over here. And notice what we can leap to in this film is because our adventure will be far from over. That our adventure has a while to go. Hold on, because we're only doing one reel-is, which are 20 minutes long, so if you're timing the next screening of the next 3 Dungeon Masters, forget it. They take longer to make than they do to watch, and when they come out, it makes no sense because they've been out for a while by the time I release them. That while I'm making this one take is easily going to be the take that I'm going to have to rely on for Dungeon Master 30. And because you've seen the map of the world and all of its functions and everywhere you can go in the world on these maps that are games, even like Final Fantasy, but even richer, but even poorer, but even great as RPGs have these worlds. And for seeing the worlds of the world, you get a level up. Level 31 and level 51 if you played the extra levels 1 through 5 twice. Then I grant you level 51 or level 31, or 51. 31 for the average traveler that had to skip the parts the dice would have sent him back on is the average travel. That those that went back so far as to even after building a character play level 1 again would have received more levels. And I think that's clear in the Hitchhiker's Guide to Dungeon Master, which is available on the internet. Released by Wizards of the Coast, which these ideas I'm seeing before me in these visual animated sequences of comic book style, cartoon style, but very role-playing game, video games, is so impressive that I'm going to tell Wizards of the Coast all about it and see if they can inherit a style like it or revive these games in some kind of a game console menu or send them out online, because these are fantastic games. Look at the way she rides that horse and that she's gaining gold coins is brilliant, because in all video games, all we ever want is gold coins, and that be all. So I take a license that we still have a bit of the drove to push on, and that we did get stuck in a boss fight has led to this Nightfall horseback, which has caught us off guard, but by staying in the light, we have lit the way with gold coins. And that we must skip into the future a bit. The next day, of course, we were riding next to a flying saucer, which is actually just a cloud, or a flying saucer hidden in a cloud that's much smaller than the cloud, as you can tell by the holes in the cloud not revealing the flying saucer. Now here we go down the mulberry bush, and she's going up this corner of the wall, and she can't quite figure out why she started a fire back there and not save her game, because she's going to run into the ugly Claw Patrol about now, which is that weird mechanism that just looked at her like a wombat and tried to flatten her like a tribal soldier of metal. And I'm not real sure what I'm getting out of this or any other pixel art games, but if defeating another boss is what I must do, then it's what I must do. And so we go to Boss Battle 2, drawn by the gamer in all of us, the gamer and Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master beat the boss this time and swam his way to victory, is not to foresell that he doesn't have a limited time underwater, that he is trained as a beautiful samurai would be to be able to breathe underwater. That reminds me, this Japanese story needs a scene that's underwater, where they go underwater to find some treasure chest or bury some treasure chest or something. It's coming. The novel's coming together. Dungeon Master can still create at an optimal level and show you things you never thought you'd see, even on the internet, even where they've made me, put me in charge of so many fields on the internet and let me have support companies on the internet, where we all support Wizards of the Coast. And if these games, these pictures of games, give them any credence as to what direction to go in with their miniature, lesser data games, they're still not lesser in quality and fun and basic interest of the role-playing game, where options are of everything, and that his melee sword is bouncing off those wall digits is cool, and that he can take damage is interesting because he's a small guy. But I have actually seen this game too. Is not a question of was it looking like this when I saw it, or did I just remember it running away from this dragon every time it attacked, and that this is almost another boss battle that we can sail on knowing that only in a few more minutes can we calculate the Dungeon Master 30 score of interrupting one game and going to another like you have attention deficit disorder from video games. Forget it. This is attention deficit disorder caused by Dungeon Master if you don't pay close attention to how these games are made. And would you not think that these were like the earlier games you had seen, but these are more strategic RPGs? Well, if it's a strategic RPG, albeit, but that they've skipped from RPG to RPG to even these friendly 3D equations of 2D empires all throughout even the topographical looking tent is just to know much more how the reality mixes with the pixelization to make things look real and in a fantasy. And you accept it is real in the game, for in the game it is real. And if it is in the game and it is real, then it's in the game, and the game is real, and the realness is the game, and what is real is the game, and the game, anything apart from the game isn't as real, because it's not the game, which is being real about its own world that is real, and the real of the game is more real than our real, because in our real, we don't go on adventures and have extra lives, but in the game real, which is the real. The game real, which is the real. We have multiple lives and lots of gold coins. So we're going to have to hem it off with a little bit of a mastery change here. We've got some logo there and a weird commercial for nursing school, which is always good in a Japanese environment, as you've read from the hidden pages. But I don't know who's getting the hidden pages along with Dungeon Master. Probably no one. That book's about 2 months out, really. I mean, it's got a ways Dungeon Master. This is the Warrior, by the way. And now we're filming not a boss battle, but it could become that if dude with triple horn back there conks us all out with his wire goggles. But that we're skipping around games while the mastery is being continued isn't just because we have strategy games we love, but because we set up this battle to go, and it's like setting up a top to spin. And I want to tell you, this is the most battles we've had on Dungeon Master. The most battles we've had on Dungeon Master, and that it's almost as crazy as this book that I know this guy who's writing about Genghis Khan and how Genghis Khan finally met his end. And I just think it's so thrashing that these demonic type shapeshifters are just such a part of reality and are so destroying everyone in sight. And that it is almost becoming a boss battle. But then right as it's becoming a boss battle, we get the skip sign and we go further into the vortex of strategy RPG that we never thought we'd see. The end is so atrocious that it's leading me to think that what if we played on this strategy, this dungeoning, this occurrence of finding dungeons and weighing their quantum physics magnitude of accuracy as to what the figures would be in size and shape depending on the camera angle and where it's located, while taking all that into consideration for miniatures that fit more to pixelization, that the quality of the meter between them all is equal, and that if you saw the size to life meter, you would know that they are accurately, realistically fantasies. And that the game is real. Real is the game. Repeat with me. Real is the game. Real is the game. The game is real. You can imagine that the game itself is real. It's really there. But real is the game. Because the game is real. But reality, real is the game. What's real is the game, and what's real is not always what it seems. So we're going to say goodbye to Dungeon Master. Say goodbye, Dungeon Master. Goodbye, Dungeon Master. Anyway, it's my job to tell you when we've gotten through a reel, and it looks like we're about to be bumper boat with Tin Pan Alley on this one, so good night.